Hello everyone. Here I wanted to provide an alternative for those of you who have Macs who are unable to use the simple decision tree add-in that those with PCs can use. So what I've found is a web application that is free and open source. It is completely available for you to use. You don't need to download anything. That will give you some of the same features that Excel add-in should provide. So if you're looking for the link to this, it is in the content section for Unit 1. Once you click on that link, you are brought to this website here. In order to create a decision tree, what we're going to do is simply click on the run portion of this. So clicking on run, I now have this blank whiteboard that opens, and this is where I'm going to create the decision tree that I'm going to work with. So the first thing I want to do is insert my first decision node, and everything is going to then grow from there. So to insert anything, what you're going to need to do is right click on your mouse or on your keyboard, wherever. So you're going to right click and it will come up with some options, and here I will have the option to add a decision node. So my first node here is a decision. I'm going to be choosing between the small, medium, and large residence. So clicking on that decision node, I now have my first square node, right? Squares indicating decisions, circle indicating chance nodes. So here we've begun the process. Now the next thing I'm going to do is want to have this grow from here and start to insert my chance nodes that branch out from that initial decision node. What I need to do is make sure that I scroll the mouse to highlight over that decision node. So notice once I highlight over it, we've changed from a thin black plus to an arrowed white plus. So what I'll see is if I'm on that thin black plus and I try to add my chance node, it will simply add a brand new node that is not associated with that initial decision. That's not what we want. We want it to branch out from that initial decision. So I'm just going to click on that and delete it. So where it goes to that white plus, now I'm going to right click again. And if I do the same thing and add a chance node, what I'll see is it does branch out from where I was before, from that initial decision node. And similarly, here I could go and insert each of those three different chance nodes, one for the small residence, one for the medium residence, one for the large residence. But what I'm hoping to show you here is I'm going to save myself a bit of work, and I'm going to simply create it initially just for the small residence. And going again, building off that chance node now and adding a terminal node. Okay, so I've got one terminal node for the branch that deals with the weak demand, a second terminal node that deals with the strong demand, and I'm going to insert my information here. So now that I've got that initial decision node followed by an initial chance node and its two terminal branches, on each of the branches, if I click on that branch, and here I have to use the left click. So if I left click here, I notice that I've got this new section that came up, and it's labeled this as an edge. All of these lines they label as an edge, so any of the branches are labeled as an edge. If I label this as the weak demand scenario, and with the weak demand under the small residence, we had a payoff of $2 million with a probability. Now I have to make sure here, when I enter this probability, the one thing I've got to make sure is I have to delete or make sure I get rid of this number sign or hashtag. So what I'm going to do is make sure I get rid of that and I enter the probability associated with a weak demand of 30% or 0.3. Having done that, as soon as I entered that value of 0.3, that probability, what I should have noticed is that for the other terminal node, it's automatically calculated that the remaining probability is 70%. So I don't need to go and change that, but I will put the other labels on it. I need the payoff associated with this. So again, left clicking on the edge or that branch, I will label this now as the strong demand scenario with a payoff in the small residence of $3 million. And now hopefully we're going to see why I created that first before creating those initial chance nodes. Because now if I copy, if I click to, or if I go to where that arrowed plus comes up again, and I right click again, if I hit copy and then go back to the initial decision node and hit paste, it's going to copy all of that information that I put in, including the terminal branches associated with it. So I'm going to do that a second time. So I'm going to paste again. And now I have my initial decision node with my 3 chance nodes, and I simply have to update this information for under the medium residence. We didn't have a $2 million payoff associated with the weak demand. This was a $1 million payoff. And under the strong demand, it was a $5 million payoff. But notice it did keep those probabilities what they should be, 30% and 70% for weak and strong. And then similarly, under the large residence situation, we had an initial payoff with the weak demand of minus 2 million, and under strong demand, a payoff of 9 million. And if I wanted, I could also label these edges or these branches. So labeling this as the small residence, the middle branch here as the medium residence, and finally my bottom branch as the large residence. And what I should see, and I have to look closely here initially, what I should see is that I have an expected value payoff here of $5.7 million. And if I look really closely, I can see that it's actually highlighted this. It's bolded this in green to say this is the branch that I'm going to choose, the large residence. I don't really like their choice of colors off the beginning. So what I'm going to do is to make that a little more vibrant, have that stand out a little more. And that's as easy as going to the settings function. And under settings, if I look at edge, remember all of those branches were labeled as edges. So under edge, I want it to make that optimal solution stand out. So choosing optimal, and instead of this sort of dull green color, I'm going to choose a vibrant red. So choosing that to a nice bright red. Once I close this, it should be a lot more obvious that I was going down that large residence scenario. Here I can now see that I've chosen the large residence, should have been my decision, and again that came with an expected value payoff of $5.7 million. Now the other nice thing about this is that even though I'm doing this within a web application, I can save this work if I ever want to come back to it and tweak anything or realize I made a mistake. So to save it, I have a couple choices. I can simply save it as a PDF, something that I could print out to include in my notes, or saving the actual tree itself where I can come back and work with it. So I'm just going to click this save icon, and I will take that in my 5020 unit 1. I will label this as lesson 1.3 residence. And if I hit save, so what will happen here is now that I've got that saved, if I ever want to come back to it, so I'll close this out as if I hadn't been here. I'll close this out. So now I go back, I click on that link in Fanch Online, I come back to this screen, I hit run again to begin working with my decision trees. So now, instead of clicking save, I'm going to click the file button here to access the work that I've already saved. So here we go. I have my lesson 1.3 residence situation, and notice it has a .json file associated with it. I'm going to click on that, and that brings back that document that I had just been working with. And again, I can now go and alter anything I need to. I can change any of the labels, any of the payoffs, anything at all. The only thing I would have done differently if this was a minimization problem as opposed to a maximization problem is I would have looked up here under the rule situation and simply clicked and changed that rule from max to min. And I notice now, again, having made that a very bright red branch I can now see clearly that I should have chosen the small residence with an expected value payoff of $2.7 million. Okay, so I highly encourage you to go and play around with that, and I really hope it gives those of you who do have a MacBook that couldn't use that initial decision tree add-in that we had, that at least this gives you an opportunity to go and create these decision trees in a way that won't cost you anything with this free resource that's available online. Please email me with any questions that you might have. Thank you.